Well, I got my notes, check. Sunglasses, check. Hat, check. Pepsi, check. Thick skin, check. Let's go. Hey, welcome to Golden Blue Dude, everybody. If you're a college football fan, might as well hit the like and subscribe button because that's all we do over here. Go check out our Patreon page. We call our Patreons the shot callers because that's exactly what they do around here. And when the regular season gets here, our Patreons will get to decide which game we'll live stream, and you'll get to watch with Golden Blue Dude. And the score prediction contest will be coming back. Every week I pick out a game and my Patreons guess the score, and whoever comes closest to the score wins 20 bucks every single week, and you can win as many times as you want. The higher the Patreon, the more guesses you get per week. Dark days are most certainly on the Pac-12 right now. Conference realignment has struck the Pac-12 pretty significantly. We already know that USC and UCLA, they're already headed to the Big Ten. And now the Big Ten is looking at either Stanford or Washington or Oregon, or maybe a combo of Washington and Oregon, depending on what Notre Dame does, because the Big Ten really wants Notre Dame. So whoever Notre Dame would want to come in with them, they already got USC. The Big Ten would oblige. So if Notre Dame says, hey, we'll come in if you bring in Stanford, then that's what the Big Ten is going to do. So the Pac-12 is going to lose more members. And now I'm hearing that the Big 12 and Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah have been in preliminary talks. And Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State are expected to apply for Big 12 membership within the next couple days, and they will be accepted. So that's 4 more teams gone from the Pac-12. But I'm also hearing that the remaining Pac-12 teams are going to refuse to play USC and UCLA while USC and UCLA are still in the Pac-12, and even after USC and UCLA leave the Pac-12. So they're really mad at USC and UCLA, and they're saying, hey, if you're on our schedule, too bad, we're still not going to play you. We'll accept the fine and take it as a forfeit, but we're not playing you. So they're trying to hurt USC and UCLA as much as possible. But let's face it, the damage has already been done. You're not going to hurt UCLA and USC. They're in the Big Ten. They're going to be just fine. So if they need to not schedule you at all because you're refusing to play them, then maybe they can jump over to the Big Ten sooner rather than later. I don't know how all that works, because if you think about it, that's basically most of their schedule gone if USC and UCLA stay in the Pac-12 and the remaining members are like, nope, if you're on the schedule, we're not playing you. So that's going to be interesting to watch that play out. Now, another thing that I found out, Pac-12 bylaws. This is very, very interesting. In the Pac-12 bylaws, it says that it takes the conference going down to 9 members to dissolve the conference. And it looks like the Pac-12 will be below 9 members within the month. Could the Pac-12 dissolve? That is most certainly a possibility, because the Pac-12 is being picked apart. I mean, the Big 12 is going after 4 current members. The Big 10 has already gotten UCLA and USC, and they're trying to get more. They're at least going to get 1 more. They could get 2 more if Notre Dame refuses, and they'll still take Oregon and Washington. So the Pac-12 is most definitely being picked apart. And according to their bylaws, if that happens, they can dissolve. Because to be honest with you, the Pac-12 has a big problem. Fox has decided that they are done with the Pac-12. They've announced they aren't even bidding on a new TV contract for the Pac-12. That's a big problem. However, there is hope for the Pac-12, but they're going to have to swallow their pride and let in some teams that they have sworn they would never let into the Pac-12. Now, you've already missed the boat on BYU. They are joining the Big 12, so BYU is off the board. But the names that are still on the board, well, you have Boise State. And we already know that Boise State is funneling a lot of money into their athletic program, including renovations on their football stadium. But not just the football stadium, a lot of their athletic facilities. Boise State is looking to jump up to a Power 5 conference. But now that the Pac-12 is being picked apart, would they be willing to take a chance on the Pac-12? Pac-12 might not stay a Power 5 conference. So maybe the Boise State Broncos are actually eyeing the Big 12. But Boise State is still an option for the Pac-12. You also have San Diego State. San Diego State has been building up their brand. They just built a new football stadium. And that's a decent TV market. Yes, you lost a massive TV market with USC and UCLA. In fact, the second largest TV market in the nation. That's going to hurt a lot. I cannot stress that enough. that is going to absolutely hurt the Pac-12 tremendously. But San Diego, the city of San Diego, depending on how much support they can get out of the city, that is a potential big-time TV market. So San Diego State would be a pretty good addition to the Pac-12. But once again, would San Diego State be willing to take a chance on the Pac-12 since they are being picked apart? Maybe San Diego State eyes the Big 12 as well. Then there's San Jose State. Not as big of a draw as the previous two teams, but hey, it's a decent team that you could call up to the Pac-12. Then there's UNLV. UNLV, and they have tremendous potential. The problem is the city of Las Vegas does not support UNLV very well. But if UNLV was to be brought up to a Power 5 conference, they're in a nice stadium sharing with the Las Vegas Raiders. Hey, that could be a potential big-time moneymaker for the Pac-12. But would UNLV be willing to take the chance? Because they're in a pretty good spot with the Mountain West. Mountain West right now not in any danger of being picked apart unless some of these teams jumps to the Pac-12. Maybe they could jump with some of these teams to the Pac-12. And then there's Colorado State. You're losing Colorado, but maybe you could keep the state of Colorado by adding Colorado State. But once again, would Colorado State be willing to take the chance of joining a dying conference? Or would they want to jump with the Big 12 with Colorado, a big-time rivalry, bigger than what people realize? And you can't forget about Fresno State. They've been one of the most successful football programs in the Mountain West. They have most definitely been building their brand. Would they be willing to help save the Pac-12? So the basic question is, number one, would the Pac-12 be able to swallow their pride and accept some of these Mountain West teams? And would the Mountain West teams that I mentioned be willing to take a chance since the Pac-12 is being picked apart? Or they're like, no, we're actually okay here. You guys are a sinking ship. I know we're in a group of 5 conference, but it's looking pretty solid right now. It's not sinking, so we're good. Or there's another option. The Pac-12 and the Mountain West could actually merge. That's the idea that might actually make the most sense. Instead of making the teams jump from the Mountain West to the Pac-12, Pac-12's just like, hey, let's merge. Yes, we keep our name, but that's because we've been a Power 5 conference, and maybe we can keep our Power 5 status by adding all you guys, and we could get a decent TV deal. That is a big-time option as well. But the biggest bone that the Pac-12 needs to be thrown to them is the Big 12. The Pac-12 desperately needs the Big 12 to be like, hey, we're going to throw you a bone. We'll actually merge with you. So instead of the Big 12 picking apart the Pac-12, they could actually do a merger with the Pac-12, and it would be a decent merger with the remaining Pac-12 teams and the current Big 12 teams. So here's what that would look like. You'd have West Virginia, UCF, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Houston, Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, and BYU, the current Big 12 members, including the 4 additions. And then you'd be adding Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, Cal, Washington State, Oregon, and Oregon State. The only problem with that is that's an odd number. That is 21 members. So you'd either have to cut one out or add one. And I think it's more feasible to actually cut one because 20 members makes way more sense than 22 members. So you'd probably cut out Cal because I'm assuming that the Big Ten does get Stanford to draw in Notre Dame. So they get Stanford and Notre Dame. So Cal doesn't bring all that much value in this scenario, especially without Stanford. So you'd actually cut out Cal and you'd have West Virginia, UCF, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Houston, Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, Washington State, Oregon, and Oregon State. Now, before you Cal fans, if there's any actual Cal fans out there, throw shade on me, they could keep Cal and actually add 3 more teams to go up to 24. That actually does make sense. You could add Boise State. Hey, Boise State's ready to make a jump to a Power 5. They're putting the money into it, and they're almost on their knees begging right now. And then also add Louisville and Pitt from the ACC to give West Virginia, Cincinnati, and UCF some more teams to play on the east side. And those are some great rivalry games for West Virginia. In that case, you'd have West Virginia, UCF, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Houston, Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, Cal, Washington State, Oregon State, Boise State, Louisville, and Pitt. That's not a bad looking conference. And I think it would keep you relevant enough so that the Big Ten and the SEC would have to include you on their playoffs and national championship. That looks like a Power 5 conference. I think the Big 12 could most definitely stay legit Power Conference if they just straight up merged with the remaining members of the Pac-12. Maybe the Pac-12 does have to dissolve like I mentioned earlier, but hey, the teams that are in the Pac-12, you survive, you're merging with the Big 12. It's a win-win. It's a win for the Pac-12 teams. It's a win for the Big 12 teams, and I think you stay a power conference. There's just way too many big-time brands in this particular merger for them to be left out. So that might be the best idea that's left on the table right now. So now I'm going to leave it up to you guys. Y'all let me know in the comments section, which of these scenarios do you think is the most likely to happen? Do you think the Pac-12 does straight up dissolve because they keep getting picked apart? Or do you think they add some Mountain West members to stay alive? Or do you think they merge with the Mountain West? Maybe that keeps them alive. Or the big one, the one that I like the most. Now that would be a traveling nightmare for West Virginia, but for the Big 12 and the Pac-12, that's probably the best idea. So let me know in the comments section. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.